Hello, welcome back to the Haunted Haven and welcome to another Kringle Candle review. Today we're doing the post-burn reviews of the Kringle Candle Reserve line, these 3 wicks that just came out. Sorry this one is a tiny bit late. I've been chaotically dealing with life, but I want to give you guys my post-burn review thoughts on these ones, and also we're going to go over quickly the fall collection that is launching from Kringle. They are getting their fall collection out. So we're actually going to do that first. We're going to go over that first. Before we get into that, I'm going to just remind you once again that if you wanted to pick up either the reserve candles or anything from the fall collection or anything else from Kringle Candle, my discount code is Haunted Haven. Yes, that's where you are, the Haunted Haven. Yes, this discount code is actually also an ambassador code for me, so that actually does help the channel. If you use this code, I do get a commission kickback from that. That is a great way to support the channel. It's a great way to keep me going. It also tells Kringle Candle that you watched my videos, that you were in the Haven, and so they are more likely to then send me PR later on. All of that is to say, it's really helpful for me, and I'm very happy to be back in the Haven as well. I took a long kind of hiatus from posting and just really happy to be doing this again. Let's hop into some fall candles real quick. So the fall collection is going to be launching on Thursday the 9th at noon. That's Thursday, July 9th. And then soon enough after that, we are going to start seeing some Halloween stuff, and I will have some updates on that pretty soon, I hope, for you. Obviously, that is the time of the year in the Haven. That is what we love here. But quickly, let's go over these. These look absolutely beautiful. So the first one we have is Aspen Ridge with a top of apple and wood, a mid of fir, needle, and spice, and a base of vanilla. That sounds absolutely gorgeous. We have the returning candle Autumn Harvest with a top of aniseed, bayberry, caramel, and fruity, a mid of cinnamon, clove, pumpkin, and spice, and a base of musk, powdery, and sweet milk. Again, sounds incredible. We have brown butter pear next, which is going to have a top of juicy Bartlett pear and peach skin, a mid of brown butter and caramel, and a base of tonka bean, vanilla, and musk. We have Cedar Incense, sounds super cool. We have pink pepper, smoldering incense, and star anise on the top. We have myrrh and charred cedar wood and clove leaf in the mid. And as the base, for the base, we have oak moss, patchouli, and a black amber. Frankly, I can see myself absolutely ordering that one. I think I will. It sounds divine. Next up we have orange and ginger honey. That's going to be a top of orange zest and candied ginger, a mid of honey drizzle and orange syrup, and a base of golden and buttery cake. So that is your gourmand of the group. I love saying gourmand. And then we have pumpkin cashmere. That one has a top of orange, nutmeg, and cinnamon, a mid of tonka bean and vanilla, and a base of musk and cashmere. Again, that actually also sounds a little bit gourmand. And then we've got, to finish it off, white pumpkin and sage. We have a top of white pumpkin, bergamot, and sage leaf, a mid of crushed thyme, clove leaf, and cinnamon, and a base of agave, nectar, vetiver, and basil. I am obviously super excited. Those are, fall scents are the scents that I love the most. I adore them the most. It's also raining outside really hard, so if we get any thunder or something like that, please excuse that. Also, sorry about the harsh lighting. I'm doing this late at night because I can't fit it in anywhere else. But I figure nobody cares so much about all that. We want to hear about the candles. So we'll go into the candles. Here we go. All right. So, as per usual, I wrote down a bunch of notes in my notes app, so I'll be reading off of that. The first one that we have is Mandarin and Basil. This is such a beauty. Let me see if I can hold it up and read at the same time. Mandarin and Basil is an extremely strong candle. This thing more than fills up a room, and the dominant note without question is the basil. First thing that I get from this candle is incredibly punchy, freshly crushed basil note. It's intense, aromatic, and the main character of this fragrance. I really enjoy it, but I will say right away, if you don't like basil, you should just stay far away from this candle. That fresh green basil is what drives the entire scent, what gives the whole experience. Right behind the basil, I get the bright burst of mandarin, and that adds a really nice citrus zing to it. That said, I don't think this reads as an orange candle, so it's not going to read, if you're worried about it being orange, that's not what I get out of it at all. The orange is not usually my favorite citrus note and in candles unless it's done especially well, and here I wouldn't even say that the fragrance leans strongly orange. Instead, the mandarin acts more like a bright, zesty accent that sharpens and lifts the basil, rather than taking over the fragrance itself. From a distance, what really fills the room is the combination of crushed basil and citrus zest. When I get closer to the candle, I can pick up more of those softer base notes, especially the vanilla, which rounds things out ever so slightly. Also, the eucalyptus in the middle of the fragrance makes itself known when I'm a few feet away from the candle. So it's not like the furthest thing, but when I'm a couple feet away, I start to pick that up. Let's see. I also think that, yes, it's not the dominant note by any means, but adds a cool freshness that supports the overall composition very, very nicely. Still, the strongest throwing elements here are definitely the top notes, basil and the citrus. That's what really projects into the room, and it does so very powerfully. This is a candle that has no problem making its presence known. Overall, I think this candle is fantastic. It's incredibly unique, honestly very, very unique. When have you smelled a fresh basil and zingy citrus candle? It's, wow. Honestly, I don't have anything like this in my collection. I've never smelled anything like it. It's fresh, citrusy, herbal, and just a little strange in the best way possible. And it's a very Kringle candle type of endeavor here. So you've got, Kringle's very, very much created something unique and special. If you're somebody who loves green, aromatic, and you want something that feels unusual, this is definitely going to be a good one for you. Performance-wise, no issues with the burn and the throw, very, very strong performance, and this would be good in open concept or larger spaces. It would definitely fill it up. So, I quite love this one a lot. Beautiful, beautiful candle. Yeah, super unique, love it. Let's go on to the next one, which is Rose and Palo Santo. Beauty, Rose and Palo Santo. Gorgeous, gorgeous. So, this is first and foremost a heavy rose fragrance. There's really no getting around that. So if you don't enjoy rose as a fragrance note, this is going to be difficult for you. Rose is absolutely the first thing, and it makes itself known and it remains a major part of the experience throughout the burn. The way that I would describe this is having two main prongs. The first is the rose petals, which are very prominent and give the candle its romantic floral identity. The second is the greener floral blend made up the ivy, geranium, and cyclamen. So rather than smelling like a simple straight rose candle, it really feels like a combination of lush rose petals paired with this green, slightly airy floral backdrop. What surprised me a little bit is that I don't get a huge amount of Palo Santo right away, at least not an obvious woody type incense kind of way. Rose is such a powerful fragrance note that it really dominates the candle at first, and because of that, the Palo Santo can feel somewhat overshadowed. If I get very close to the candle, that's when I can pick up more of those deeper base notes, specifically the Palo Santo, the sandalwood, and the soft incensey warmth that is underneath the florals. Up close, the candle becomes much more balanced, and that combination of rose and incense is actually blended together quite beautifully. At a bit of a distance though, especially on the first impression, the candle reads much more floral than woody. From further away, I'm mostly getting that rose and those accompanying florals. However, when I'm standing maybe 2 to 3 feet away, I do get a bit more of that meditative feeling and that incense feeling. And it reminds me of Kringle Candle's Coven Candle, which is that Nag Champa profile. It's not identical, obviously, but it gives me a kind of similar spiritual, incensey little bit of a vibe. What's especially interesting about this candle is that my impression of it actually changed the longer that I spent in the room with it. At first, though, I thought that the rose was almost completely overpowering the Palo Santo. After sitting with it for a while and letting the fragrance settle into the room, I started to notice that the incense and the Palo Santo notes came out more clearly. So I would say the first impression of this was all floral, no Palo Santo, no incense, but then the more time I spent with it, the more I moved about the room. That's how it kind of developed, and I uncovered some more of that as well. So standing maybe 5 feet away, after the candle had been going for a bit, I had time to marinate in the scent, and the fragrance started to feel much more like what the label promises, the rose and the Palo Santo. So I think that this is one of those candles where the more time in the space that you have with it actually matters. It's going to develop differently rather than just having a first impression. If you actually spend time with it, if you actually sit and marinate in the layers, you're going to get more out of it. Performance-wise, very strong candle. The throw is excellent. Absolutely no problem filling up a larger room, traveling down a hallway, and it would perform well in an open concept space. Strong room-filling floral fragrance with enough depth underneath to keep it from feeling just one note. So yeah, overall very lovely candle, feels romantic, relaxing, and even a little bit meditative if you sit with it. If you love rose, this is easy to recommend. It's going to give you that rose for sure. And also if you enjoy that little incense Palo Santo thing, I think it would be an interesting try if you like rose and you like incense. I think this is a very interesting one. Personally, I love rose incense, personally, I love rose and I love incense. So this is an easy one for me. It's an easy one to love. I think it's beautiful, super, super nice. So I like it. Next, we've got weathered wood, a very weird one, very interesting one, weathered wood. To my surprise, a very floral candle. Much more floral than I expected and has a really delicate, pretty kind of beauty to it. When I first walked into the room, the immediate impression that I got was from the florals in the heart of the fragrance. The orange blossom, the rose blossom, and the freesia are what really define the candle on the burn, and I do think that the rose is the most noticeable of the three. That said, it doesn't completely overpower everything else. It still feels more balanced than a straight rose candle because the orange blossom and the freesia keep it airy and rounded out. What I didn't get very strongly on the burn are the top notes. The bergamot, the melon, and the pear don't really stand out to me individually. I'm not getting a pronounced citrus quality from the bergamot, and I wouldn't say that the melon and the pear add a particularly obvious fruitiness to it either. Even when I'm further away from the candle, which is where I can pick up on top notes more clearly, normally, I still find myself getting mostly the florals rather than the fruit or the citrus. I think that the soft, powdery quality that I mentioned in my first impressions is still very much present here. I'm having a harder time pulling out the patchouli and the rhubarb as distinct notes, but I think that they may be combining more to the structure and the mood of the fragrance. Contributing more to the structure and the mood of the fragrance than showing up as clearly identifiable notes on their own. In terms of performance, this is a very solid candle. Burned it in my room with the door shut, and while I wasn't able to smell it through the closed door, the moment I walked into the room, I had plenty of fragrance to work with. It was filling the space beautifully, and even from the furthest corners of the room, I was still getting the full impression of the candle. So the strength of the throw is somewhere in that medium high to high range. It's not the kind of candle that punches you in the face down the hallway, but absolutely will take care of the space that you are trying to imbue with its fragrance. The more time I spent sitting with this candle, the more I felt like I started to understand that the concept that Kringle was going for. At first it reads primarily as floral, soft, feminine, pretty, and delicate, but after spending more time in the room, especially sitting maybe about 5 feet away from it, the amber and the patchouli in the base started to come through more clearly. And that's when I began to get more of that weathered wood idea. Not as a dry cedar or a smoky wood scent, but as a soft, woody undertone beneath the florals. So I do think that this candle has a little bit of that nature element to it, but it's a much gentler interpretation of wood than the name might initially suggest. You do absolutely have to like florals to enjoy this one because the florals are the dominant thing going on here, but I think that this candle offers something a little bit more interesting than just a standard floral blend. There's a soft aged wood atmosphere underneath of it that gives the fragrance more depth and feels a bit more intentional. So overall, very interesting scent, uniquely realized. Not what I would have expected from the name. I would have expected something more straight up wood. However, I think how they realize this is actually very, very interesting. And the next one that we have is Silver Eucalyptus. So, silver eucalyptus has a very strong, very pleasant throw, and I actually get more eucalyptus on the burn than I did in my cold impression. So that being said, I still would not describe this as a straightforward eucalyptus candle by any means. If you're expecting something purely sharp, minty, and herbal, that's not really what this is doing. Instead, it feels like a much softer, creamier, more stylized take on eucalyptus. What really stands out to me on the burn is the way that the clove and the tonka bean in the middle combine with the vanilla in the base. Together they give the candle a smooth, creamy sweetness that softens the eucalyptus quite a bit. The vanilla sugar also contributes a little to that extra sweetness, so overall this is definitely not an austere or medicinal eucalyptus scent. It has a warmth and a softness to it. Interestingly, the clove adds just the tiniest hint of something holiday-like to it for me. I don't mean to say that this is suddenly a Christmas candle because it doesn't really go in that direction, but there is a subtle suggestion of it in the background, especially when you think about the combination of clove, cinnamon, vanilla, and sugar, and that creamy tonka warmth. It's not enough to completely change the personality, but it's enough that I found it interesting and worth noting. Standing further away from the candle, I actually do get more of that pure eucalyptus. From a distance, I'm able to pick up on the eucalyptus note more clearly, and then layered underneath of it, I get that clove, tonka bean, heliotrope, and vanilla. Together, they create a very interesting blend. I'm having a harder time detecting the orange zest as a distinct note, however, but the more I spend time with the candle, the more I pick up on the cinnamon in the top. Even so, cinnamon is not one of the first notes that defines my experience with this candle. It is more of a subtle supporting note. Overall, I find this candle extremely pleasant. It does lean a little sweet for my taste, so I was somewhat surprised by how much it occasionally nudged me in a slightly holiday adjacent direction. But at the same time, I think that the eucalyptus does keep it from ever evolving fully into that direction as well. It still feels fresh enough and airy enough and spa-like to stay in its own lane. Honestly, the best way that I can describe it is that it just smells like a stylized eucalyptus spa candle. It's not trying to be a pure eucalyptus scent. It's eucalyptus that is filtered through vanilla, tonka clove, a soft sweetness, and I think that that makes it feel much more like an atmospheric home fragrance than simply an aromatherapy candle. Performance-wise, this one was excellent. Throw and strength are both strong. It had no trouble filling the room. It absolutely delivers in terms of performance. It does so while offering a little bit more of a distinctive flavor than your standard eucalyptus profile. One thing that I did notice at the end was when I went to blow out the candle, that was when I get that surprisingly strong hit of patchouli. That was in the base. That was really interesting because I hadn't been especially noticeable for me during the burn itself. So it seems like the patchouli is actually there, but it might be one of those base notes that really only reveals itself when you get extremely, extremely close to the candle. Or maybe that will come out also potentially after a few more burns. So overall, I think this is a super pleasant scent. I genuinely enjoy it quite a lot, and I would definitely use this to create a beautiful, relaxing atmosphere in the home. Just a little sweet, creamy, spa-like, and very, very distinctive, and very Kringle Candle, very, very interesting. Now we're on to Jungle Tuberose. Jungle Tuberose. First and foremost, this is a very, very floral candle. The immediate impression that I get from this one is that lush combination of tuberose, carnation, and jasmine, and those notes really dominate the fragrance from the moment that I walk into the room. It's a very bold floral profile, and it made itself known very, very quickly. Even though there are multiple florals at play here, I would say that the candle still reads primarily as tuberose rather than a more classic rose. So it really is the tuberose. It's a difference. If you don't know your rose candles, there is quite a difference there. The tuberose is really the star of the show, while the carnation and the jasmine help to shape the overall floral profile and give it a little bit more variation. So it doesn't smell one-dimensional. It's absolutely a kind of multi-dimensional floral candle with the tuberose really taking the lead. In terms of performance, this one is very strong, had no problem filling my room, and the throw reaches very well into the space as well. This is not a candle that you have to search for. It announces itself very, very quickly. In terms of performance, this one is very strong. It had no problem filling my room, and the throw reaches well into the space. This is not a candle that you have to search for. It announces itself pretty quickly. And if you want to put this in a larger room or you want to have a floral fragrance to really carry, it will do that quite beautifully. I'm very close to the camera. Okay, I'm moving back. All right, in terms of performance, this one is very strong. Oops, I already read that. When I get closer to this candle, I start to notice more of that creaminess in the base. The vanilla and the coconut come through and soften the florals in a way that almost makes the candle lean a little bit body care-like to me. There's something about the combination of those creamy base notes and the floral on top that reminds me of a rose or tuberose lotion. Something soft, feminine, and lightly perfumed in a way that's a body care sort of way. It doesn't smell cheap or artificial to me, but it does have that creamy cosmetic softness rather than the feeling of a raw, fresh cut floral bouquet. Overall, I would describe this as a very feminine candle, floral, creamy, and polished, and it throws extremely well. Also, I think the personality of this candle is worth noting. To me, this is not a quiet, meditative floral, and I wouldn't necessarily light this if I were trying to relax, zone out, or create a really tranquil atmosphere. Instead, it feels much more lively and energized. It brings life into a room rather than disappearing into the background. Overall, I think this is a really beautiful candle, and this is strong execution of the concept. Very floral, softened by that creamy vanilla coconut base, and backed by genuinely powerful throw. So, that is Jungle Tuberose, and then we're on to our final Guava and Goji. This was the sleeper for me. Personally, did not think I was going to love this one, but this is actually the sleeper. Guava and Goji is a lovely tropical candle to me and absolutely screams summertime. The fragrance really captures that bright, juicy tropical fruit profile. I get the grapefruit, pomelo, goji, mango nectar, and guava all blending together into something that smells delicious, fresh, and genuinely joyful. It has that lush tropical fruit quality without ever veering into anything syrupy or artificial. What surprised me most about this candle is that out of all of the reserves, this was actually the weakest in terms of its throw and strength. However, I want to be clear that it does not mean that this performs poorly. Every one of the ones that I've described to you so far is powerhouse. That is, it's going to throw well in an open concept space, and this is the only one where I would think potentially just a bit smaller of a space is actually better. However, I do want you to know that in my personal bedroom, in my personal space, it actually performed very, very well for a space this size. It's just not going to be the same in an open concept space. So, does it have quite the same aggressive punch as some of the other candles in the collection? It's not one of those scents that completely barrels through the room and announces itself from a mile away. Instead, it feels a little bit more restrained and more manageable, and that is actually partially why I liked it so much. For a small space like my bedroom, some of these were actually too powerful. So when I was standing about maybe 4 feet away from the candle in the room with the door closed, I still got plenty of fragrance. It's not weak by any means, but just compared to the rest of the collection, I do think that the throw reaches outward into the room in a slightly softer and more subtle way. And like I said, that is part of why I loved it. There's something about it that just feels so happy, bright, and summery. It really creates a cheerful atmosphere in the room. It's fruity, it's tropical, and uplifting in a way that feels effortless rather than overpowering. It also reminds me a little bit of body care also, but in a good way, almost like a really fresh, high-quality tropical body care product. Not synthetic, not candy sweet, and not fake fruity. It feels more like genuinely fresh, tropical fruit. There's something about it that feels clean and happy rather than heavy. This is the kind of candle that I would genuinely see myself burning nightly. It's one of those fragrances that makes a room feel pleasant and easy to be in. So for me, the strength on this is actually perfect because I tend to burn candles in my bedroom, but that's mostly where I burn the candles. And this is exactly the atmosphere that I want. Summery mood without completely overwhelming the space. Overall, I really love this candle, and it's easily my favorite of this bunch. Again, surprise, I was not expecting this at all. If you're somebody who loves a juicy tropical fruit scent and you want something that feels bright and happy without being overpowering, then you should check out Guava and Goji. So, there we have it, my friends. I will hopefully be picking up some of the fall candles, and then after that, we're into Halloween, and am I ever so happy to be saying that, and so happy to be, yeah. God, it's coming up soon. I think it's like early August they normally do it, so insane. I'm so happy. As always, fantastic to see you back in the Haven. Again, my discount code is HAUNTEDHAVEN if you want to save 15%, and I really appreciate you doing that. I look forward to seeing you very soon. After this video, we are going to do South of Sanity's Halloween, so that is our first official Halloween video coming at you very, very soon. So I look forward to seeing you in that one. All right, take good care and talk to you soon and have a great beginning of your July.